Crypto is the roller coaster of sanity. One day you're on the moon, and another day you're getting mooned.
I feel like crypto also isn't like gambling, you know? It's like way worse. You know, there's no buffet at the end.
Murphy, isn't it?
That's right, there's no perks, there's no ladies gonna be giving you drinks.
None of that, man. It's just the dry spell.
Yes, it's just the pain without the momentary gain.
Yeah. And I feel like, you know, crypto is the future, but a future where you are broke.
Crypto is not where it's at. Bitcoin SV is where it's at.
Straight up, and we've been preaching the truth back to back, yo. So I think it's quite about damn time that people really know the truth about which is the real Bitcoin.
Yeah, and you know, everyone's always saying, I'm in it for the tech. But those are the same people checking the price chart every 30 seconds.
This project has strong fundamentals, you know. Invested after seeing a random meme on Reddit.
Yeah, that's where you go now if you want to get investment advice. You don't go to your friendly neighborhood broker. You're going to go into the socials, right?
Straight up.
That's where all the real advice and the real wisdom comes.
That's why they're saying the market is finally maturing, Mr. G. Prices still pump based on memes and influencer hype.
That's about as mature as it gets.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin's been hijacked.
Oh my God. Say there was a disturbance, but everything's under control. Say it, or I will kill you.
Straight up, Mr. G. Hostile takeover, yo.
That's right. It's dangerous out there. You can't just go and invest in your crypto. You don't know who's going to be holding you up on the highway.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is a stick up. You see people with guns just showing up at your doorstep.
It's every man for himself.
It was him!
Survival of the fittest.
It is really survival of the fittest, Mr. G. And we all know that the fittest Bitcoin is BSV.
Yes, and fit isn't about being physically fit. It's about being mentally fit.
Mentally fit.
And mentally fit, you got to have the knowledge.
Straight up, because yeah, you can be a beefcake with no brains, right?
Yeah, that's most of crypto. Everybody's flexing their cryptos, their meme coins, and nobody's actually doing the hard work, putting in the training, learning, figuring it out, trying to get to the bottom of all this.
Yeah.
Nah, it's just about give me those roids. Let me pump those muscles up as quick as possible.
Yeah, and I feel like it's quite sad because the truth is out there. You know, like I always say every week, man, we preaching the gospel, we talking the truth about the protocol.
Yes.
You know, so this is not like, you know, some hidden knowledge, you know, some sacred knowledge that nobody should be coming across. This is all for everyone.
That's right. And we are bringing it. We're bringing the edutainment. Mm-hmm. We're bringing the real knowledge of BSV, Bitcoin, Satoshi's vision.
Yeah.
Something that has been long forgotten. Something that is needing to be now unearthed. And we need archaeologists to try and figure out what was Satoshi thinking and what was he trying to get done when he invented Bitcoin. Was he really just about bringing down governments and central banks, or was he trying to do something different? And that's what this show is all about.
Yeah, Mr. G. And I feel like, you know, when you have such great ideas, like, you know, groundbreaking, world-changing ideas, somehow they are hijacked.
That's right. There's a lot of ideas out there that people want to take and claim for themselves, but they're not happy with the way those ideas are put out there. They want to change those ideas. And a very important aspect of this crypto world we live in is a world where the ideas have been hijacked and have been manipulated and have been changed, have been distorted in the minds of so many people. And so what we've got to do is we've got to go back to the beginning. We've got to go back to the source, something that is lost in the mists of time. Like, what was Bitcoin? What was it supposed to do? What was the goal of the inventor when he invented Bitcoin? And that is what this show is about. And that is what you guys are going to uncover when you come and watch the Centbee Show, when you take the time to sit down with Kage and I, and we talk about real Bitcoin information.
Straight up.
Stripped of all the myths, all the fakeness that's been creeping in, and those people who've been trying to hijack Bitcoin, have been trying to manipulate it and turn it into something that suits their goals. And at the end of the day, when you look at crypto and you realize that this has got nothing to do with saving the world, don't believe the hype about, you know, everybody's going to get rich if they just buy into Bitcoin or BTC or crypto or whatever it is.
Lies.
That's not how it works. There's only a few winners out there.
All a big scam. Shut up.
And you're going to be the one who eventually just gets drawn through and cut up into chunks and chewed and spat out at the end of the crypto rainbow.
That's the sad part, Mr. G. And that was quite brutal. Like, I could, that was graphic, but quite honest. Yeah.
I'm your host, Lorien Gamaroff. My co-host is Kage. Kage, what's the opposite of hijack? Kage.
Low jack.
Kage, low jack, Ntshingila. Kage, welcome to the show.
So, Mr. G.
All right, yeah. So what we want to talk about today, we want to get into this story about Roger Ver, who's been very prominent in the Bitcoin space from almost its inception. I think, probably 2011 or so. And Roger has been an incredible person when it comes to spreading information about Bitcoin. At least, that's how it was in the early days.
Yeah.
Back before crypto was divided, back even before there was crypto, there was really just Bitcoin. Roger was a fantastic ally to everybody in Bitcoin because he was just so excited about this idea of digital cash. His ideas about Bitcoin certainly were colored by his experiences. He was involved with some trading of certain contraband across the web, and he got arrested and all that kind of stuff.
Almost like a Ross Albert story.
Yes, Ross got pardoned. And
Yeah.
if you haven't seen that episode yet, that was last week's episode about Dread Pirate Roberts or Ross Ulbricht. And he was very important in the early days of people's awareness of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
He was the mastermind behind the Silk Road dark web marketplace. And we go through Ross's story and especially the fact that he got pardoned by Donald Trump when Donald Trump became president. So if you want to know more about Ross Ulbricht, then check out last week's episode and you're going to hear more about dark markets and Silk Road and Ross Ulbricht, and most importantly why Bitcoin was not meant for something like Silk Road.
Yeah.
Roger Ver, aka Bitcoin Jesus.
That is blasphemy. Be quiet.
Somebody who's from almost the very beginning of Bitcoin has been pursuing this idea of Bitcoin as digital cash. Obviously, what's happened over the years is now people think about Bitcoin as being digital gold.
Yeah.
And of course, now we have investors, BlackRock investors, MicroStrategy buying billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. We've got Bitcoin ETFs.
Yep.
Everybody's talking about store of value, Bitcoin, digital gold. But Roger Ver is somebody who has been pursuing this idea of digital cash from the very, very beginning. And he wrote a book called Hijacking Bitcoin, which talks about the whole story of how BTC, because of the changes that were made, trying to make it more decentralized, eventually split away from the original Bitcoin. And that's how we ended up with Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah.
We want to get to the bottom of who's been hijacking Bitcoin and what did they do?
Talking about Roger, who is he and how did he start up getting into crypto?
Yeah, so, Roger, he's been around since the very beginning. If you've been involved with Bitcoin or interested in Bitcoin for, just almost from 2011 or so,
Yeah.
Roger Ver was really probably the most prominent person out there pushing this idea of Bitcoin as cash. He got the name Bitcoin Jesus because he was just so evangelistic when he would go out and speak at conferences about Bitcoin. He's got such a passionate take on the whole thing, and he
Yeah.
loves to speak passionately about freedom and free market.
Yeah.
He was born in the United States, and back in 2002, he got arrested because he was selling firecrackers or fireworks or what they called illegal explosives on eBay. And he got arrested and had to sit in jail for 10 months. And after that, his whole mindset and his philosophy on government and politics changed. He became very libertarian and also a little bit anarchistic. He thinks that governments shouldn't control you in any way.
Yeah.
And when Bitcoin came along, he just jumped on it. He had a business called Memory Dealers, and they were just selling memory, computer memory, and other peripherals and things like that.
Yeah.
And he started accepting Bitcoin on his website. He's been really somebody who, for especially people who've been around for a long time, really important person educating people around Bitcoin and what it was meant to be.
It feels like, his perspective was more, the government wronged me, so I need to build a system or work towards a system that sort of takes down the government.
Right.
Roger was so, pissed with the US government that he decided to renounce his citizenship.
Yeah.
That's a big deal,
It is. Being in crypto, being in Bitcoin, you can imagine it marks you because especially with Silk Road, it's always been about, at least from the very beginning, it was about Silk Road, dark web, anonymous transactions. Now with crypto and scamming, and also with anonymity coins like Monero, if you're somebody who's prominent in this space, you can be sure, especially somebody as prominent as Roger Ver, that you would be targeted. And, you know, he has a criminal record. And you can just see how now he is just so fed up with being harassed by the United States government. And also, he couldn't just leave the country. You know, if you leave the country, you still have to pay taxes in the United States. And so he felt like the only way he can just get away from this is by renouncing his citizenship. And he eventually became a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and Barbuda as well, trying to flee from the problems.
Yeah, because you see with these guys now, what I see, there's always like a pattern of them sort of trying to put the government in bad light. Like the government doesn't want
explosives being sold online.
You know? I mean, who would? But
firecrackers, sorry.
They're literally just whatever he wants to call them.
He wasn't interested in a regulatory compliant, government controlled system. Something about Bitcoin, the way it was developed with that whole decentralization aspect. From the very beginning, people have thought that the decentralization of Bitcoin was specifically there so that governments couldn't control and manipulate it. Now, of course, in a decentralized system, it's true. You can't go and you shouldn't be able to manipulate it. You can't go and change the rules of the system. But as we keep on going on about the show, and you're going to see that this is one of the most misunderstood concepts around Bitcoin, is that Bitcoin was, of course, meant to be governable and follow the rules around payments. And if you are selling firecrackers online, those payments can be traced. And so Roger Ver, even though he liked the whole Bitcoin, digital cash, low-cost transactions, global transactions, what he has always wanted is a system that governments can't even see what is happening there. And that's why Roger in the past has been quite a prominent advocate of what they call privacy coins, rather what are called anonymity coins, like Monero and Zcash, because there you can make payments, but the idea is that you can't see where those payments come from and where they're going. Every time he speaks about it, no matter which forum he's talking to, he's always going to go on about how Bitcoin was meant to be a system that allowed you to make payments to anybody for anything you like, and nobody can stop you.
The reason all these people are so excited about Bitcoin is because it truly is one of the most important inventions in the entire history of humankind. Bitcoin is, for the first time, it will allow any human being anywhere on the planet be able to send and receive any amount of money with anyone else anywhere on the planet without having to ask for permission from any bank, corporation, or government. And nothing like that has ever existed ever before. And it's going to change the way human beings on the entire planet are able to interact with each other. Nothing like this has existed.
And that really is what Roger has been trying to do. Even though he believes in the digital cash aspect of Bitcoin, and he doesn't believe in the digital gold, which is what BTC is all about, Roger still has that problem with the fact that Bitcoin is transparent and requires accountability. He hasn't been somebody who's been what we would call a person who follows Satoshi's vision.
True, Mr. G, because I'm also starting to pick up a pattern, like with the BTC guys, the BCH guys. Like they always pinpoint one attribute that sort of like will work for their narrative. Because for the longest time, Roger has pushed Bitcoin peer-to-peer transactions. But it's so out of touch with it now having not to be regulated, because that now already says this is not Satoshi's vision.
That's right. Satoshi's vision was about accountability. The fact that we've got proof of work, that is an accountability measure. Proof of work is not about making a system that cannot be broken because of the enormous amount of electricity that it takes to process those blocks. The proof of work is to incentivize miners to remain honest. You know, you're putting money at risk. You're investing in infrastructure and resources and electricity to be able to process those blocks. You don't want to risk those resources, that investment. And Satoshi Nakamoto even said, you know, that you'll earn more money if you're honest in the system than if you try and be dishonest. So if you try and process an illicit transaction or double spend, you're going to lose your investment as a miner. And so proof of work mining is about accountability. It's the one thing that makes sure that Bitcoin remains subject under the law. And in fact, the security around Bitcoin through proof of work is security provided to us by the legal system. So another thing that people don't really understand about Bitcoin is that it is secured by the legal system.
Yeah.
The lawyers, the judges, the laws that have been written and created around business operations, financial transactions, the transparency of those transactions,
Yep.
being able to get audited and be able to pay tax.
Yeah.
That is the system. The legal system is what is securing Bitcoin through proof of work. Proof of work itself is not securing Bitcoin, just the fact that you're burning a huge amount of electricity. Of course, everybody will say, well, if you want to go and manipulate Bitcoin, you've got to spend that same amount of electricity. It's got nothing to do with any of that. The legal system is what secures Bitcoin. And Roger Ver, of course, he doesn't believe in the legal system, and he doesn't believe in government getting involved in Bitcoin. He's trying to get out of that situation. He is very keen on this idea of digital cash, as are we, as is what Satoshi Nakamoto created. But he doesn't, and to your point, he wants to take what he thinks is good, but he wants to now get rid of what he thinks is bad.
Yeah.
And of course, now he's talking about something other than Bitcoin.
Yeah, Ms. G. Roger says, the most important invention, since the internet is Bitcoin. Well, I would say it's drones, but what do you think about that?
Yes, he says it's the most important invention since the internet, and that's what we always say.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is something that has been a missing part of the internet, something that is supposed to, once it actually is used properly, change how we conduct business in the world. The ability to be able to earn income from anywhere in the world, the ability to send microtransactions, make micropayments for things on the internet without credit cards, that is significant. Just in the same way the information age came about with the internet, we now need to couple it with the payment age through Bitcoin.
So far, I found two things that we agree upon with Roger, that Bitcoin is meant to be peer-to-peer cash, and Bitcoin is
the most important invention
after the internet.
Yes.
So I think those are the two things that we agree with.
That's right. But now, of course, Roger's got a few more reasons why he thinks it's that important. We're obviously taking the Satoshi Vision purist view around Bitcoin, enabling all these different new things. But, of course, Roger has other issues that he thinks Bitcoin can solve. And one of those issues is that he believes that governments shouldn't have the control over money. The issuance of money. At the moment, we have in the world inflation, and governments can create inflation because we've got money that's not backed by anything. And Roger has always pushed that idea that governments shouldn't be able to control the money and limit how people use it. Even though he doesn't talk about Bitcoin as digital gold, he definitely looks at it as a new kind of money, a decentralized money system like gold that people can use without governments manipulating it, inflating it. So, that's why he thinks it's so important. And of course, he's trying to achieve that goal of money and state being separated.
So, according to him, it's like, if Bitcoin is used, there won't be any wars. That's how he puts it.
Yes, when you think about wars today, if you think about governments, you can inflate currencies. They don't have to raise taxes if they want to pay for a program like war, which is incredibly expensive. The ability to be able to inflate currencies gives governments a lot of power. And if you have a non-inflatable currency, I guess like gold, once upon a time we had gold and money, and you can't inflate it artificially or arbitrarily. You need to get more gold if you want more gold. And to be able to spend it, you've got to have it. Roger Ver is definitely looking at Bitcoin as a new kind of sound money system, very close to the idea of digital gold, but of course one that still is a good medium of exchange with low fees and very few limits.
It takes me to my point that, Roger is quite different from everyone else. He cares about the tech and, the purpose of the tech, of the technology, but he doesn't care much about the price like everyone else.
Yes, he said that. He doesn't care about price, he cares about the tech. Now, that's another statement that is often said with people who are interested in Bitcoin and not interested in it as a speculative investment. People who are interested in the technology and what it can provide, what capabilities it can provide. And Roger has many times said he doesn't care about price. Roger isn't one of those people out there who's flipping cryptos and talking about investing in cryptos, making huge bets on the price of these coins. He really wants to see a world where digital cash becomes mainstream. And it doesn't matter what price the token is. as long as it can facilitate a transaction at very low cost. So that's the thing about Bitcoin. It's not about how much it's priced.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the more it is used, given its limited supply, the more pricier it will get as demand increases. You know, if you've got supply and demand, if you've got a limited supply of something and the demand increases, the prices are going to go up. And if Bitcoin eventually becomes used around the world, people are going to require it. They're going to want to get it. And if there's a limited number of them, obviously the more demand, the price is going to go higher. But Roger isn't focused on that right now. You know, he just wants to have this world of low-cost digital cash.
He also mentioned that, you know, the developers, the BTC, Bitcoin developers, don't understand economics.
Yes.
So why does he feel that way?
When you look at these guys who are involved in crypto today, especially BTC, they might sound like, and they might think that they understand economics. Saifuddin Ammous, you know, he wrote a whole book about Bitcoin standard. You know, it sounded very sensible. You know, he borrowed a lot of ideas from the Austrian economists. But at the end of the day, none of these people in BTC understand economics, because they think that you can just have a token without any utility, without any use, and it can just magically be valuable. So that is a huge economic principle that is missed in the BTC community.
And we're talking experts here.
Yeah, I mean, you can write a book about it, Kage. This is the thing. You know, the people who believe in BTC that can have value with no reason for its existing apart from existing, of course, you don't have to be a Nobel Prize winner in economics, right?
Honestly.
You can be a child to understand that that's silly.
It is.
Now, going back to Roger, that's what he wants. You know, he wants a world where that is possible, of course, the microtransactions. And that's why he has such an issue with the people in BTC, because they're moving away from that. They are moving away from digital cash, and Roger wants to bring it back to digital cash, albeit in a more anonymous, cypherpunk kind of way.
So yeah, Ms. G, it's 2017. And we have the block wars now. They've started.
Yeah.
But what started the block wars?
Yeah, so this is something that was pretty tremendous back in the early days. This was when there was only one version of Bitcoin. BTC was it. And guys like Roger were pushing for this idea of keeping Bitcoin the way it was originally intended as digital cash. Other people in the community were saying, no, we need to make Bitcoin more decentralized. And so eventually we had the block size wars. And those wars were fought on two sides by the small blockers and the big blockers.
I'm just glad, you know, the terminology used that it was blocks instead of balls, because that would have been weird.
The small ballers and the big ballers. Maybe we can't keep that in. So we had these block size wars, and the Bitcoin community was split into two. Those who wanted to keep the 1 megabyte block size so that they could keep Bitcoin maximally decentralized. They could also make other changes, segregate witness, do other things, manipulate the protocol, change it. They can pursue the ideas that they have around maximum decentralization and digital gold. And then, of course, the other side of the war, there were the big blockers saying, no, let's get rid of these block size restrictions. This was just a temporary measure. It's making it impossible for us to realize the idea of digital cash, because you can't have cash that has enormous fees. And you also can't have cash that takes ages to be able to be confirmed onto a blockchain. We need to be able to go back to a world that Satoshi envisioned, which is a digital cash world of low fees, fast transactions, reliable transactions. And so this created the block size wars, and Roger was very much on the big blocker side of the battle.
We were there. We witnessed it, Mr. G. I literally thought, this is it. The focus was supposed to be about the technology, the adoption and all of that. But now the narratives have changed. Now people have their own distorted understandings. I felt like that was the end. What we just kept on is literally the true vision more than anything. It's not, we weren't following the tickers, but we were following the vision.
That's right. And so part of that war was about the changes that people in BTC had made to Bitcoin over the years. And so part of the arguments in that was about reverting Bitcoin back to the original design specification that Satoshi Nakamoto provided for us. And so this block size war wasn't just about the size of the blocks. It really was about the whole ideology of what Satoshi's vision represented.
Yeah.
And BTC has deviated so much from that vision that it's just, you can't compare the two. In fact, BTC shouldn't even call itself Bitcoin, because it has nothing to do with the original Bitcoin that we all got to appreciate back in the early days.
Fact.
So this was now the big issue. Amazingly, the Bitcoin communities ended up splitting, and the Bitcoin that reverted back largely to the original version, although there were a lot of people on the other side, the BTC side, who were very pro pushing those changes and making sure Bitcoin remains 1 megabyte blocks and so on. The mainstream media people, we've mentioned Max Kaiser on the show before, the heads of exchanges, there were so many people who wanted to just carry on with what BTC was doing. Roger ended up being on the minority of that war.
That's when he was standing for the people, or standing for what's right, I guess.
What he believes in,
And that was peer-to-peer cash, and that's what Bitcoin was meant to be.
Yes, peer-to-peer cash with that caveat of trying to be anonymous. In fact, during the block size wars, people stopped calling him Bitcoin Jesus and started calling him Bitcoin Judas.
Judas!
Everybody who obviously was, fond of Roger because he had been such a prominent advocate for Bitcoin, suddenly now was speaking against the mainstream in Bitcoin. He was betraying everybody on the mainstream side. He was speaking against what people were trying to do in BTC, and eventually became the traitor, the Bitcoin Judas.
That kind of fits, because I think there's quite more events that happened after that to sort of like certify him being the Judas.
Yeah, we were quite excited about the split because we, as a wallet payment company and also just believing in digital cash the way Satoshi intended it, BTC was a great disappointment for people involved in Bitcoin, because it was now completely deviating away from that digital cash. And so it was very exciting during that time to now see two different versions of Bitcoin emerge, and Bitcoin Cash became the kind of Bitcoin that everybody looked at as now fulfilling Satoshi's goal. All the exchanges wanted to make sure that people were still trading what they wanted to trade, and so they kept the changed version of Bitcoin as BTC.
At that point, the hijack was sort of like it was already like in action, I would say.
That's right.
Yeah.
Roger's book, Hijacking Bitcoin, he goes through this and covers all this in that book about the politics that was going on, what people were thinking about at the time. Those people on the large block side were very excited about things. It showed that it was possible that Bitcoin could split and still survive, albeit the original version of Bitcoin now had to get a new ticker symbol, BCH, or Bitcoin Cash, and that word cash was trying to emphasize the quality that Bitcoin had, the peer-to-peer cash. And so for a long time, I guess it was for a year until the next hijacking happened.
Literally.
Bitcoin Cash represented what Satoshi Nakamoto wanted. And so that's why we ended up with the BCH fork of Bitcoin. And so Roger was very prominent on that fork. Of course, people like Craig Wright were prominent on that side of the fork. We were there. We made a big deal of making sure that Centbee, although it was a Bitcoin BTC wallet beforehand, we then made sure that it remained on the protocol. The original Bitcoin protocol became BCH. And so that is the story that is told about in this book, Hijacking Bitcoin, with Steve Patterson and Roger Ver. And so if you want to just understand more about, from Roger's point of view, how that all happened, that book is now available and you can go and read it. But what we always say is that that book only has half the story of how Bitcoin was hijacked.
Wait, talk about half-baked.
Half the story.
Half the story, half-baked, half-cooked. Roger has mentioned social media being used as sort of like the platform to spread all the lies and hopiums and stuff like that.
I mean, obviously that's where wars are fought these days, on X or on Reddit. And Roger claims in his book that there was a massive campaign to undermine him, a lot of misinformation that was put out there. You can imagine when we're looking at the Bitcoin world today, I'm not talking about crypto, but just the Bitcoin world consisting of Bitcoin BTC, Bitcoin BCH, Bitcoin BSV. you've got very vocal people who are very vocal on social media. If you're looking for information on these topics, that's where you go. And so, of course, if people now look up online and they want to understand Bitcoin, you're going to get all the prominent people in this space, and most of them are talking about BTC.
Yeah.
You can tune into Bloomberg or CNBC or Fox News or any financial news network, and they are interviewing people who are very prominent in their support for BTC. You'll find it very difficult to go online, onto social media, or even onto the mainstream media, and find people who are talking about Satoshi's vision. All of them, just about, are discussing the price action of Bitcoin. I've got this feed that I subscribe to and that I just add news blogs to, and one of my categories is Bitcoin. But the entire feed, all this information that's being collated from all these different websites, just about 99% of the articles that are covering Bitcoin in the mainstream media today are always talking about price action, or who's going to be buying Bitcoin, how many billions is MicroStrategy going to put in.
Yeah, because Mr. G, people on the BSV side are actually building.
Well, this is now what Roger has been speaking out against. He's saying that everybody's talking about Bitcoin as digital gold. And even if you go online to the social networks where it's not the mainstream, but it's the actual people involved in the crypto community, they are going to be taking over these social media networks like Reddit, and they're just going to be trying to undermine anything that anybody says about...
well, that's factual, because that's the crazy part. You know, it's like, even if you were to put out like a factual article about BSV, just because a couple of dudes, they are just BTC cryptards, like, for them it's like, this guy is just literally talking crap. Like, they just basket you at that. There's no open discussion.
You're going to be making an impact on their investments.
By the way, so you're an enemy.
If you speak out against BTC and you tell people this is junk, it's worthless, it's pointless, it's unsustainable, it's unscalable, the people who are holding BTC are not going to want you to be heard. Luckily, we're small enough, I guess we can say, that we're not being targeted right now.
Actually, as you're talking about that, Mr. Chi, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, damn, like, we're actually like tapping into dangerous zones, because
we're putting ourselves out there. We're lifting our head above the trench.
Stand ready!
I have a plan, sir.
Advance!
Well, I'm afraid it'll have to wait. Whatever it was, I'm sure it was better than my plan to get out of this by pretending to be mad. I mean, who would have noticed another madman around here? Good luck, everyone.
For real, Mr. G, because we're dealing with people's monies, So if we actually just telling them that that's not the right way to go, and they're expecting, like, the dumb crowd to be going to the left, they could be taking us out because we're literally messing with their bread.
That's why this is such a sensitive topic. When you start talking about Bitcoin to people and you're saying, sorry, BTC is just a waste of time, that's hurting them.
I just had an epiphany. Damn, man. Like, this is deeper than actually how we put it out, Mr. J.
They don't want people to think that BTC is not valuable. They've obviously been investing in BTC. They've got their BTC bags, and they are hoping that it just, Donald Trump starts buying reserve BTC, and they're hoping MicroStrategy just puts more billions. They want Larry Fink from BlackRock. Yeah. This is their ticket out of whatever mission, whatever problem they have. And if you're going out there and saying, sorry, BTC is a false dream, they're going to want to come and get you.
No, for real.
And Roger got it. Because he was so prominent, he was so well known in the BTC space, anytime he would go out there and try and put this information across, he would just get taken down on socials.
Because even the renouncing of his citizenship could have something to do with the crypto mafia, like, getting to him, like, dude, better step out of here, or we'll take you out in a body bag.
Yes, that's right. So even though he did a lot of good work in terms of Bitcoin advocacy back in the day, now he's a pariah. Now he's somebody that people just want to shut down. He's going through legal issues now because of unpaid taxes or whatever it is. And of course, crypto, they're just laughing at the guy and enjoying his pain. This is just the state that we live in, the nature of the world we live in today.
Yeah.
If you're looking for real information about just about anything, you have to contend with people with agendas. And BTC, the people in BTC have a massive agenda because of their bags that they're trying to protect, the value of those bags.
The bags run deep, Mr. G. That's the crazy part. Yeah.
That's right. But obviously people who are now looking at Bitcoin as a tool, it's not about the fact that we've got this investment that we want to protect. No, we want to create a world where we can build value.
Yeah.
The value doesn't come from owning the token.
Yeah.
The value that you can create is what you do with that token.
Yeah.
So this is the big difference between people who are in the so-called small block world, who are just protecting their tokens and the value of their tokens, and the people in the big block world who are trying to show the world that this is something that is valuable to everybody, that is useful. And that is the wonderful benefit and power that Satoshi's Bitcoin can bring.
Yep.
But of course, that is not the message that people who are investing in crypto want to hear, and especially the message that people in BTC don't want to hear, because now you are risking their investment. So Roger is getting it from every side, every angle. Look, he's not perfect.
Yeah, he's not.
But he is definitely an example of what it's like to be destroyed on social media.
Yeah, I know. Damn, man. He's literally like roadkill for us. Like, he's like an example of what happens in that space. But it also shows like the brutal nature they have.
Yeah.
It's all about prices, just getting the bag. They don't really care about other people.
It's about one thing. Money.
But BSV does, yo, and Satoshi's vision does. So yeah, guys, remember to subscribe, show some love, tell your granny, your dog, your neighbors. This is the real BSV plug, yo. Over Money on Fire.
I've already subscribed.
So yeah, Ms. G. I mean, Roger, he faces legal trouble.
Yeah.
And now he's arrested.
Yeah, so he hasn't just been getting flack from the BTC crowd.
Yeah.
He's also been getting flack from his ex-government, the United States. While he was still a citizen in the United States, apparently there were unpaid taxes for Bitcoin transactions or something like that. He is now out of the country, of course, not a citizen, but about to be extradited back to the United States to face those charges. What's interesting, though, is that, recently we had Ross Ulbricht, who was pardoned by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Donald Trump took pity on the guy, shame. He's done 11 years. All he was doing was creating a platform for people to be able to trade illicit things, and maybe 11 years is enough. So Ross got a get-out-of-jail-free card there. Well, I suppose not free.
Yeah, I know. Poor guy served this time.
That's right. He got a get out of jail after 11 years card.
Yeah, that's a long time, yo.
But now Roger is facing also legal troubles, and he is hoping to be able to get the same kind of treatment from Donald Trump. Everybody was fighting for Ross. Ross became a poster child for crypto way back in the day before there was the splits and the forks, and Ross missed all that.
Yeah.
But now Roger's been tainted with the forks and fighting for big blocks. And so he doesn't have the support from crypto bros. Crypto bros are laughing at him. Some of them are being pretty mean and trying to even expose information that they can give to the IRS and stuff.
They literally want to lynch him.
Roger renounced his US citizenship, and so he can't be pardoned. At least that's what Elon Musk says, right?
But it makes sense. I mean, you have to be a US citizen to get those privileges, right?
Makes sense.
So if you renounce, like, I don't want to be a part of this anymore, why would you still want the privileges of that country?
Yeah.
So I think he should just face his music there. I'm picking up that similar between Ross and Roger, is the fact that they were trying to push the whole idea of Bitcoin being cash, like Satoshi envisioned it, and for me, I'll give them like a star there, because at least that they got it right on that point. But everything else, it clearly is detached from the true vision.
Yes, I think a very important similarity between Ross Ulbricht and Roger is that they, of course, like the idea of a digital cash system that is cheap and accessible to everybody. But they both have that anarchist mindset. Some might say libertarian, but it goes beyond libertarian, because they want people to be able to trade anything with whomever, whenever, wherever, without any restrictions and without any controls. And that is obviously a recipe for danger.
Jeez, that's crazy.
There needs to be accountability in transactions. Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin with traceability for this particular purpose.
Captain, we found crypto, bro.
Is to make sure that it remains compliant with all rules around financial transactions. He also wanted to make sure that there was identities linked to those transactions.
Yes.
That's why they're pseudonymous. You can see them, but you don't know who they're linked to unless there's a record connecting an identity to that transaction.
Yeah.
That's the role of accountable institutions who do KYC, know your customer. So Satoshi's vision was for a regulatory compliant digital cash world. Unfortunately, Ross and Roger have gone beyond that, and what they want to do is they want to create an unaccountable world. So they're not that far away from the BTC crowd either.
True.
They're kind of a mishmash, if you like, halfway between.
Really so.
Yes.
Like you can tell like they share the same blood type for the fact that they have a twisted narrative that almost looks appealing to a normal person.
Yeah.
But we all know that, it's like a sheep in wolf's clothing.
It's idealistic. Poor Roger, he was another good poster child at one stage for Bitcoin, but unfortunately became tainted with this ideal of freedom and anarchy. I mean, that's really what it is.
Yeah.
And so even though I appreciate Roger, I've met him before and spent time with him, and I think he's a good guy, wanting to make the world a better place type of thing.
Yeah.
But he has unfortunately missed a very important aspect of Bitcoin, which is that it has to be compliant with rules. There has to be rules. There cannot be anonymity. Without rules and with anonymity, we're just going to end up in an anarchistic world where there's more pain and suffering than any good that can happen. Now, Satoshi Nakamoto has the best of everything. Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin to be cheap, to be accessible, to be global, to be international.
It's like a full toolbox full of every tool you need, man.
To check every single box that is going to make law enforcement and regulators and tax authorities and financial regulators happy.
Even you as a user.
Me as a user, exactly. As a user, I can be happy that when I use Bitcoin SV, I'm not going against some rule, or I'm going to be tracked by some law enforcement guy and get arrested.
Or overcharged.
Yes. So Satoshi Nakamoto has the best set of ingredients. Cheap transactions, regulatory compliant transactions, something that the world can use and that can transform our lives. So even though Roger had a lot of ideas about Bitcoin that are good, and he was a good advocate for those ideas, he also unfortunately had a lot of bad ideas too. We, of course, want Bitcoin to succeed, and we want it to change the world. We want it to be a force for good. And something can't be a force for good unless there are checks and balances in place to stop the criminal element. Because with Roger's vision, with Ross Ulbricht's vision, and with the BTC crowd's vision, that is only going to lead to illicit activities and criminals being enabled, and the world not becoming better, but rather far worse. Rather, Satoshi Nakamoto's vision is the one that we should look forward to. That's the one that is the sun that makes the world
literally
grow beautifully.
It's piercing through the horizon, Mr. G.
Yes.
Far distance. You can see clear.
Yes.
That's how Satoshi thought about this tech.
Yes.
These guys, what they don't understand is that they are so short-sighted. They're just looking at what is near to them, and that's that. And they think that is Bitcoin, but Satoshi went past beyond what they see. That's why BTC and BCH are bootlegs, Mr. G. They will never be the original.
And corrupted versions
straight
of
up.
Bitcoin.
So, Mr. G, I mean, when we're talking Roger Ver's book, it's half-baked, basically, because it ends at BCH.
Yes.
And the wars continue from there.
That's right, exactly. The book, Hijacking Bitcoin, we always say is half finished. Because it really tells the story about how the BTC and the BCH fork happened. But that's only half the story, and Roger ends the book at that point where he says that Bitcoin Cash is the Satoshi Nakamoto Bitcoin that we should all be supporting. But he doesn't go far enough, because he has also gone and hijacked Bitcoin. The BCH community then went and did another hijacking, where they said, right, we want to now take Bitcoin Cash, which was the original version of Bitcoin, and we want to make changes to it now. and turn it into something that it wasn't originally. And so the story then continues. The second part of the story is yet to be told. The story of how Bitcoin Cash was then hijacked, and now we ended up with two different versions of Bitcoin Cash. One being the changed version of Bitcoin, which is still called Bitcoin Cash to this day, which is Roger's Bitcoin, and the one that he's advocating for in this book, Hijacking Bitcoin. But that is now an altered version of Bitcoin once again. And the Bitcoin that is now the only Bitcoin that exists today that follows the exact rules of the Bitcoin white paper, Satoshi Nakamoto's Bitcoin, is the Bitcoin Satoshi's vision version of Bitcoin, which is what we support and what we keep on talking about.
Always.
Satoshi's version of Bitcoin. And so the second part of hijacking Bitcoin now needs to be written. And what we're doing in this show is we are explaining that second half of the story that is yet to be written. Bitcoin was hijacked. It was hijacked again. And now finally we have a version that is set in stone. And the people behind Bitcoin SV, very importantly, are really trying to enforce that notion of a set in stone protocol.
I think the title needs to change, Mr. Chi. But in Roger's instance, like with his book, is quite accurate, because I think the way he's putting it is how he hijacked Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it literally as him saying, this is how I hijacked it. And that's why it ends at his part, because, you know, the hunter will always tell a victorious story.
That's right.
You know?
I guess the next book that should be written should be called Rescuing Bitcoin or Restoring Bitcoin.
Exactly, man. Straight up, that's the Mr. G's gonna write a book. I'm putting it on you. Rescuing Bitcoin.
Yes, that's what it's about. And thankfully, we've got organizations like the Bitcoin BSV Association who are trying to do that. They're trying to restore Satoshi's Bitcoin and set it in stone and preserve it the way it was intended to be. And of course, that's not just a religious thing. You know, it's not about just sticking to something religiously. There's a very important reason to do that, because it gives entrepreneurs and investors confidence that whatever work and effort they put into that blockchain, however they use it and leverage it in their own systems, that the design of it is not going to change. And that gives you long-term confidence in the future of that blockchain. Right now, there's no long-term confidence in BTC because of the changes that they've made to that protocol, nor is there any long-term confidence in BCH because Roger and his supporters, they have made changes to the Bitcoin protocol. And Bitcoin Cash is not how Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin. It is an alternative version. So if we want stability, if we want confidence for the future, and we want something that is going to grow just like the internet, we need something that is stable and set in stone, just like the internet protocol. Because that's exactly what happened with the internet protocol. It hasn't changed. It's been decades, and the protocol has remained set in stone. All the innovation for the internet has come around it. The apps, the networks, the servers that enable the internet to be used by us. That's changed. There's been tons of innovation, huge upgrades, all that kind of stuff. But the protocol of the internet remains set in stone. Bitcoin needs to remain set in stone so that we can have that same journey that we've had on the internet and that same productive future. Something that we are all looking forward to. We can't understand right now, but it's going to require every person out there who understands Satoshi's vision now to go and start building that world that we all want to see and that we know is possible with Bitcoin SV.
Yeah, I mean, that's clear, Mr. G. That's Satoshi's vision right there.
Satoshi's vision.
There's no other way.
So guys, don't get it twisted. Yo, remember to subscribe, show some love, yeah? Mobile money on fire. So yeah, Ms. G, we're going to be stepping into this week's socials. Our first one comes from Theo 2. He's saying, hi guys, the iPhone app is unusable. Please solve.
We've just gone through a corporate restructure and we've had to just reassign apps in the App Store. So in the next few days, we're going to be republishing the Centbee app into the iOS App Store. So if you can't see it there at the moment, just give it a couple days and we're going to be able to get it back into the App Store. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, our second one comes from BSV Godfather, and he's saying, yo, shout out to BSV Godfather, man. This is one of our regulars. And they're saying, still my favorite intro song. Fire, headphones. Out of all BSV content creators, Our intro song is his favorite.
I hope you like more than just the song. We always put a lot of effort into our hooks, the intros, and we hope that you guys like it, chucking in some jokes there. But thanks, BSV Godfather. Thanks for being such a great support to the show.
Sure, thanks, yo. Our third one comes from Ali, and they're saying, Connor, you are an intelligent guy. Can you explain why you focus on scale if you don't have usage or adoption?
Okay, so he's referring to Connor Murray, who we interviewed on the Centbee Show not so long ago. So check it out. Great interview. Connor is the head of protocol stability at the BSV Association, and that conversation was really quite a technical discussion about the protocol of Bitcoin. But the question relates to the BSV Association and the people in the BSV community trying to achieve massive scale on the BSV network. That means being able to cater to millions of transactions per second. And the new technology that is enabling that is Terranode, which is the new software implementation of the Bitcoin node software infrastructure. And so at the moment, what's happening in the BSV community is that everybody is trying to make sure that BSV can handle millions and millions and millions of transactions per second. That's the goal. But of course, there aren't millions of people or millions of transactions naturally on the BSV network. And so this question says, well, why should we bother looking to scale the network if it's not being used right now, if there isn't any demand for that? Mm-hmm. And a lot of blockchains are like that, in fact. Even BCH, and we've been talking about Roger in this show, Bitcoin Cash. Yeah. They do want big blocks because Roger wants Bitcoin to be used as cash. And so he doesn't want to have a limit of number of transactions. But the way Bitcoin Cash are going is they're saying we're only going to increase the block sizes when we need them. In other words, when demand starts picking up so much that we hit that limit of a couple megs a block, I'm not sure what the number is now, 32
megs,
something like that.
Yeah.
So they're saying, let's just only increase the block size as we need it, as the volume picks up. But now, if you think about it, that's a bit of a crazy way to go about things.
It is.
Because what you're saying is that we want massive volume on the network. We want everybody to be using Bitcoin and for miners to be earning income. But we're not going to give people the ability to have millions of transactions on the network. So to get that volume, you need to be able to show and demonstrate to people that the volume can be handled by that network. Yeah. If we want enterprises and we want merchants and we want businesses and consumers to now start using Bitcoin SV, they need to know that the network can handle that volume of transactions. If an enterprise comes to Bitcoin and says, okay, we've got an estimated 1 million transactions per second we want to push through the network, how much can you do right now? And you say, well, I can do 32 megabytes. They're going to say, you can't handle this number of transactions. Why should I use your network? So it's not that scale is going to follow volume. It's the other way around. The bigger you can scale and demonstrate that your blockchain can have and cater to millions of transactions, the more likely those transactions are going to come. If you build it, they will come. Yeah. In fact, it's too late. If you are only going to be upgrading your blocks when the volume hits, that's too late.
That's late, yeah.
Because it's not just a simple thing about saying, all right, we'll change a variable in the code from 32 to 64. No. Because when you have massive volumes of transactions, that needs to be handled by the software systems. And if you haven't been testing it and stress testing it and trying to improve your software, then by the time it comes for you to increase the block size, you're going to realize, whoops, we've got all this other issue that we didn't think about. Now we have to think about how to scale the software or make sure that the software can handle this. So this is not just about turning on a block size and increasing the block size. You need the software architecture to be able to handle that. Now that's not in the protocol. Yeah. The protocol doesn't define how the software should be written to handle these transactions. The protocol says, this is how transactions should be handled, and if you handle it this way, then we won't hit a scaling ceiling. But what you have to now go and do is you have to now go and create the software to be able to sustain that. And the Bitcoin Cash guys, they're not working on that problem right now. They're saying, look, it's fine, 32 megs, that handles just about as much as we need. So there's no reason for us to now go and spend work and effort to try and figure out how to scale those blocks to be even larger. So they're sitting on the back foot.
32 Megabytes. That's like one image, Mr. G.
Yes, it's tiny, it's ridiculous, and none of those developers in Bitcoin Cash are now developing the software or the skills and hitting themselves against the head with the problems that arise when you now start pushing that volume of data through that network. So really, BSV is doing it. It's trying to show and doing the work and putting in the effort to actually now build out that network so that when you go to it and you say, right, I'm ready for millions of transactions, let me push them through, the network is saying, bring it. Yeah. We can do it. We've demonstrated it. We've got examples and we've got data, statistics that we can draw from.
Yeah.
So that's why you scale first. If you want the volume, you've got to do the scale first.
Bring it on.
Yes. Volume is not going to come until people know that the system can scale. And that's exactly what BSV is doing right now, proving that it can scale.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's quite stupid to have like that assumption that, you know, we'll grow when we grow.
Yeah.
It's like...
We'll think about it then.
It's like you need to think about it from inception.
Yeah.
And clearly, you know, Satoshi had it like all figured out because scaling was never like an issue when it comes to the original version.
Protocol is protocol.
If you run the protocol correctly, you can handle the scale. But you still do need to have an engineering problem to solve.
Yeah.
So... The software engineering is different from the protocol.
Yeah.
The protocol is how things should work. The software is making it work.
Yeah.
So that's a very important thing. That's where the work needs to go.
We need to actually highlight the fact that, you know, this is about the work that's been put in more than anything, Mr. G, because I feel like that's where it is.
Yes.
This is literally about the work being put in.
The phrase proof of work,
it
is appropriate for every aspect of life, but of course with Bitcoin.
For real.
This system is never going to succeed without that work.
Yeah.
But of course, people in BTC and crypto, they're saying we wanted the glory and we want the joy and we want the benefit without the work.
Did you just sound like Trump for a second? We just want the joy.
Is that what Trump says?
But that's how you said it.
We just want the joy and we just want Bitcoin to work. All right? That's all we want. And there's no way we're going to get that unless we put that work in. That is what's going to make Bitcoin succeed.
Yeah.
Not you being lucky, buying low, selling high. That's not work. That's just being lazy. And nobody ever got rich being lazy, at least not you.
Straight up, guys. You heard it from the OG himself, Mr. G. So yeah, remember to subscribe. We're stepping to our last one from Jack 369. I like this closing.
And a comment like that really encourages us so much. Jack, you've just made it all worthwhile and we appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Straight up, man. Like, yo, we'll never tire out, Mr. G. We still got the juice. As long as we're here, as long as Satoshi's vision is clear for us, you know, we're soldiering on.
Soldiering on.
Yeah.
Satoshi soldiers.
Straight up, yo. Mr. G, I think we've come to the end of our show.
All right, thanks, Kage. The subject of Bitcoin is a very complicated one. It's not just about, you know, this cryptocurrency. There's a lot involved. There's a lot of history, a lot of factions within Bitcoin, all with different agendas, everybody trying to achieve what they believe will work for them and work for the world. But you know, it always comes back to Satoshi Nakamoto. Everybody thinks he just sort of came up with Bitcoin instantly like this, you know, 2008, financial crisis, let me quickly whip up a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But Satoshi Nakamoto, if you understand Bitcoin, you can understand how much thought went into creating Bitcoin. Something that can solve all the problems in the world and can really make the world a better place. But unfortunately, everybody else out there has just decided to hijack the idea of Bitcoin and make it in their own image and deviate away from what Satoshi had in mind. An unfortunate thing for people who are still looking forward to Satoshi's vision becoming a reality. It means now that we have to try and fight all these false narratives. We can't just build a product. We've got to go and we've got to try and educate people around this. But it's not all in vain, because eventually the realness of Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin will be known and the world will benefit. And for those of us who stayed stuck on that vision and we pursued that vision and we did work around that vision, ultimately we will be the benefactors of that. And the people who are benefiting now, it's when you bloom too early, in high school, you're the cool kid, but you get out of school and you realize now that,
reality,
the cool days are over. Well, you don't want to bloom too early in crypto. This is a long-term game. Keep following the show, so like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and we'll be back next week with another dose of real Bitcoin. All right, cool.